Welcome back, Raider Nation and my champions. And this is part 2 of our State of the Division series where we're going to be taking a look at the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll be using the same format as we did in part 1 when we took a look at the Chiefs. If you haven't had a chance to catch that video, I'll put a link in the description below. Let's get to it. So here's a look at the 2020 season for the Chargers in much the same format as we used in the last video, also the Graydon Gruden series. Now, some of the things that stuck out to me is the team in both years were a top 10 in offense and defense as far as yards, but the records obviously didn't reflect that, and there's a couple reasons for that. Especially in 2019, they were fourth worst in turnovers, and they were second in the league in percentage of offensive drives ending in turnovers. Thank you, Philip Rivers. Thank you very much. And then they drafted Justin Herbert. He ended up winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, and those numbers went down to 28th and 29th respectively. But the win total only went up 2, and I think the big reason is Anthony Lynn here, the head coach, kind of making some bonehead decisions. I've talked about that in the game review with the Chargers Raiders last season, and it was kind of a systemic issue going on. So, well, it's obvious I wasn't the only one seeing this, and on January 4th, Anthony Lynn was relieved of his duties as head coach of the Chargers after 4 seasons, and they hired a guy named Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator from the LA Rams. This is his first time as a head coach in the NFL, and he has some college experience before that. Young kid, 38 years old. And we'll talk about him. We'll also talk about the coordinators he's brought in on his coaching staff once we get to the matchups here. The Chargers, like the Chiefs and the Raiders, have had their share of turnover on the offensive line. Mike Pouncey's retired. They cut Trey Turner in the cap clearing move. And then they lost Dan Feeney and their starting left tackle Sam Tevi to free agency. Now, unlike the Chiefs, I think the Chargers have done a much better job in refilling those holes. For example, Jared Cook, I think he's still serviceable as a pass-catching tight end, and he was about half the price of Hunter Henry, so that kind of made sense. Corey Linsley, they actually kind of went out and paid the big money to him, but he is number 1 ranked center in PFF, so that's understandable. And then they got a couple guards here adding free agency to fill these holes. There is one, obviously, with the left tackle, and we don't know yet how they're going to fill it, and we'll talk about that next in as far as the positions they should be going after in the draft. So based on the current roster, these are the top 3 positional needs in my opinion. Now, they do have about $27 to $30 million in cap space, depending on the website you go to. The first one I have here is that linebacker / edge position. Right now, the depth chart shows it as Joey Bosa. I think he's better suited on the edge. He can play both. This is basically the Melvin Ingram position. He was not re-signed. He's in free agency. Nobody else has signed him. And the need hasn't really been addressed yet by the team. So I think they need another pass rusher alongside Joey Bosa. The next one is the left tackle position. We just talked about that one. Sam Tevi being gone. Are they going to rotate somebody over? Based on their roster, they have a lot of right tackles, not really any left tackles per se. They have some guards that can play tackle. So I think this is a position of need. Either needs to be addressed in free agency, maybe going after an Eric Fisher, poaching from the Chiefs, or in the draft. And then the third one's cornerback. They did get rid of Casey Hayward, as I mentioned previously there. Chris Harris is there on one side. They promoted Michael Davis. That was a guy I talked in a previous video about, someone that maybe Gus Bradley could bring over. But he ended up getting over 3 years, $25 million. So it's over $8 million a year. So probably too rich for our blood anyway. But the issue here is, one, Chris Harris is kind of on the back end of his career. Let's face it. He's not the same player he was in Denver. And there's nobody really behind those two per se. So as far as corner and nickel, I'm concerned for the Chargers, especially going up against teams like the Raiders, like the Chiefs, that can put 3 wide out and go deep on you. So I think those are their needs. These are the draft these are the picks they have so far. So they're picking in the 13th slot. And then these are the prospects, same format as before. If a guy like Micah Parsons fell to them at 13, they would probably jump at the chance for a guy like that who could probably play inside or outside linebacker for them. Another option is that maybe one of those quarterbacks falls, like a Trey Lance, like a Mac Jones, and somebody wants to come up, so they'll trade back. That's a definite possibility. Here are some other guys I think that could fit the bill as far as linebacker and edge rusher. And then the corners, I don't think they're going to go for that in the first round. I could be wrong. And then there are some decent, I think, left tackles in the second round there in the 47th spot that they could probably go after as well. First, going to take a look at what we can exploit on the Chargers offense. Obviously, they've had a shakeup in the offensive line that we talked about. They don't have an official depth chart on ESPN nor on their official website. So this is something I kind of put together myself. Your mileage may vary. But Brian Bulaga obviously is the right tackle. They picked up the 2 guards in free agency. Lindsley is the center that they picked up, big name, big dollar center. And then left tackle is kind of open right now. That's why I kind of put it in black here. I put Quessenberry. He's the highest rated tackle on the team according to PFF. Obviously that could change. They also have Tyree St. Louis that they drafted a couple years ago, I believe, in 2018 from Miami. So, or like I said before, they could go pick up somebody in free agency or the draft here. But this is where they stand right now. I think it's a little bit better than the Chiefs as far as their offensive line, but there's still some areas I think we can exploit. Well, I do think their interior line's pretty solid. I think we can exploit these edges. I think Balaga's kind of, getting older there, getting a little long in the tooth, and then this is kind of totally up in the air. And I think we have the edges to do it. Plus, with this matchup, I'd really like Jonathan Hankins re-signing here because otherwise I'd be a little bit worried about us covering the run on the inside. As far as the Chargers defensive side, they do have a depth chart available, and I plugged those in along with the PFF numbers. Now we're going to talk about the areas I think we can exploit with our offense. So these are the areas I would focus on if I were the Raiders. First off, Jerry Tillery, he was drafted in the first round to basically be the nose tackle, and Lindell Joseph beat him out, so they moved him over in the end. And then they're putting, as far as the depth chart, they do have a depth chart for the defense, and they have Bosa out here at outside linebacker. I'm not too impressed. You could probably say he's a bust by now. PFF grade's pretty low. I think we could run right at him and not be a problem, to be honest. Chris Harris, I talked about him being a little bit older. This isn't the no-fly zone anymore. And I think Henry Ruggs needs to get, in his second year, kind of make that step up, use his speed and his advantage to win this out. And then the nickel, when you have Brian Edwards in there or Renfro, right now I'm not seeing anything I'm not too worried about over there. Now Adderley is a strong safety, and you got Derwin James, who's probably the second best player, but he can't cover both. Adderley's terrible against the pass. He's strong against the run. And I think, like I said, I like Michael Davis. I think he's an up-and-coming guy, so I think it's probably an even draw. It's kind of going to go back and forth. So these are the areas I would attack if I were the Raiders. Also, you got to bend the ear, obviously, of Gus Bradley, who coached most of these guys last year, and to gain an advantage in that aspect as well. Unlike the Chiefs, the Chargers are a bit of an enigma right now. They have a new coaching staff coming in, and it'd be interesting to see how Justin Herbert does in his second year. We're going to see a sophomore type jinx, or is he the real deal? A lot of questions, and I would love to hear your comments on the Chargers and how you think they match up with us and how you think they're going to do this season. If you did enjoy this video and review of the Chargers, give it a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and supporting this channel, and as always, go Raiders.